Hello, you're welcome to another edition of What the Papers Are Saying, where we bring you the stories as captured by various media outlets. My name is Vivian Kai Lokko. In a bit, I'll give you an idea of what stories made headline. Of course, we know the coronavirus has been something that we've all been talking about for the past week and more. Unfortunately, that virus is in the country. 11 cases reported as of this afternoon. We'll bring you details of that and how the various media outlets captured that story. Stay with us. Don't go away. So you're welcome back to What the Papers Are Saying. My name is Vivian Kai Lokko. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching us via DSTV, your channel is 363. In a bit, I'll announce the phone line so you can send us messages as well when we start our discussions. But what made headlines this week? Of course, the coronavirus made a lot of waves. It's continuing to do so. But how have the media outlets captured that story, and what's the latest to that story? Let's start with the story proper and start with Citi Newsroom. And the latest to it is coronavirus cases in Ghana increases to 11. That's the latest to that story. We'll still stay with the coronavirus because earlier in the day, the president spoke to the nation when he met with the Christian community. And he said, let's see God's face. This too will pass. That's the president speaking on the COVID-19. Citi Newsroom again, government suspends passport services over coronavirus scare. Let's go to the Chronicle. It says, pastor arrested for defying presidential order on COVID-19. We go to the Daily Statesman. It says, Transport Ministry spells out COVID-19 safety measures for trotro drivers. Let's go to the New Crusading Guide if we can. See virus scare, danger in our prisons, water, pollution, facilities for hygienic living short. Ghanaian Times, Christians, Muslims join fight against COVID-19. We go to the Ghanaian Observer, government courts media medics to fight COVID-19. The Daily Graphic says, nation confronts COVID-19 head-on. Public gathering cancelled, schools closed down. The Daily Statesman says 2 Italians denied entry into Ghana as COVID-19 travel ban on countries with 200 cases bites. We still stay with the case proper. The Chronicle says you can't land in Ghana from COVID zone. This is government speaking. And then the Ghanaian Times says COVID-19 updates. BEC candidates must go home. Teacher unions appeal to president, demands timetable change for final exams. Let's look at the implications around businesses with regards to COVID-19 and how some business websites and media outlets reported it in other media outlets as well. And let's start with Citi Business News. They've been speaking to the players in the hotel industry, and they say hotels lay off casual workers to cut operational costs as COVID-19 reduces patronage. The Ghanaian Observer says manufacture of masks, hand sanitizer, gloves. President Akufo-Addo rallies pharmaceutical giants and regulators. The Daily Statesman says BOG cuts policy rate by 150 points over COVID-19. The Ghanaian Times says COVID-19 updates. Ghana's economy faces meltdown as petroleum recede, FDI, international trade, others affected, says Finance Minister. We go to the Business Finder. It says COVID-19, GPHA bans ships from high-risk countries. What will be the impact availability of products? The Chronicle says Ghana to tap into $22 billion IMF World Bank COVID-19 funds. Daily Graphic says COVID-19 opportunity to self-produce. This is the president speaking. The Ghanaian Publisher says government seeks support from $12 billion World Bank COVID-19 facility. The new publisher, COVID-19, fear hits customs ports over Unipass. And then the Business and Financial Times says, Coronanomics, BOG takes swift action to keep economy on front foot, cuts policy rate by 150 basis points to 14.5%, up to 100 cities. Momo transfers free, Momo threshold shoot up, bank envisage GDP growth dropping to 2.5%. Let's go on to other matters arising over the COVID-19 with regards to elections and registration of the Ghana card, and go to the Citi newsroom. NIA sued for continuing Ghana card registration amid coronavirus outbreak. The new crusading guide, suspend registration, Ghana Medical Association warns NIA. Let's go to stay with the new crusading guide. EC will go ahead with compilation of new voters register. And we still stay with that newspaper because it says, fight COVID-19 with action, not words, Mahama tells Akufo-Addo. Citi newsroom says, NDC sues EC over compilation of new voters register. So this is how media outlets covered the COVID-19 stories. Let's move a bit away from COVID-19 and go to utilities. And that has been running for some weeks now. Shortages have hit some places in the Greater Accra region with regards to water supply and some acute power supply as well. And so Citi newsroom says Gridco blames intermittent power outages on lack of fuel to power plants. Still with Citi newsroom, current power shortfalls don't require load shedding timetable. This is Gridco following people demanding for that timetable. And then Citi newsroom again says power challenges. GWCL urges Eastern Region residents to store water ahead of possible shortage. We conclude with Ghanaian Times. It says, Ghana, GWCL to supply health facilities, but warns of water shortage. So let's come back to the studio and let me introduce my guest for tonight to help us delve into these stories being reported by various newspapers and online portals. And let's welcome Mr. Samuel Atta Mensah, is with Citi TV and Citi FM. Welcome, Mr. Mensah.
Thank you.
Let's also welcome Selorm Adonoo, who's head of features here at Citi FM and Citi TV. Selorm, welcome to what the papers are saying.
Thank you, Vivian.
So, gentlemen, last week on the show, before we ended, we're all hoping that the coronavirus will not hit us as it had hit other countries, specifically our neighboring countries. Unfortunately, when we finished the show, I think within 5 or 10 minutes, we recorded our first 2 cases. But this whole corona thing, it's a global discussion because it's affected about 100 countries so far. Is this the first time we're seeing something as big as this? We had the Spanish flu and all that, but is this the biggest SARS and all that, the biggest we've seen so far? You're the science guy.
Very good evening to you, Vivian. This is a pandemic, and this is not the first time a pandemic has been announced. H1N1 was a pandemic. HIV, as we have it today, or as we had before, was a pandemic. It still remains a pandemic. We've had other things which have consumed larger populations, millions of people. But I can say that in recent times, this appears to be the most contagious of diseases, and the way the world has become one in terms of what we call globalization, etc. This has made it a bit more scary than it would have been. If you look at a lot of the cases that African countries, for example, record, a lot of them started as imported cases, which meant that it tells you the impact of globalization, how people move, how the world is seen as one, and how people, interact with each other. Like rightly said, last week we finished a program and we were all hoping that another week will pass and we won't have a case. Just when we stepped out, we heard that the Information Ministry was holding a press conference, and once we heard the Information Ministry was holding a press conference with the Health Ministry, we just that's the thing coming. And indeed, 2 cases were reported, and since that time, we've had 9 more cases testing positive, and that certainly is not good news. But what is important is that there are measures in place to try and then contain it. Again, what is important is a recognition that if you don't act fast, you could be overwhelmed. I don't think we are at a stage where we are overwhelmed yet. We are at a stage where we are careful. We appear to be deploying all our resources, all our arsenals, and our know-how, trying to ensure that the disease doesn't get out of hand. The coronavirus itself, it's a virus. It's in the family of viruses called the coronavirus. What makes this a bit different is that this has never been seen. This is new. That is how come initially it was called the novel coronavirus. And if you recall, when it started, people called it the SARS-CoV because it has symptoms as SARS. SARS itself is a coronavirus. The MERS, the Middle East respiratory syndrome, MERS, which also killed a lot of people.
There are about 7 of them, aren't
yes,
they?
emanating from the Middle East, etc. And then even some viruses in the common flu, in the flu family, are also known as, coronavirus. So the good thing about this is that it is not airborne. If it had been airborne, I think the rate of infection or its contagion nature would have been higher or would have been more. This spreads by what we call droplet infection, which means that, for example, when somebody sneezes, there are droplets in the air. There's some moist. So, for example, if somebody wants to sneeze, or if you want to sneeze and you cover your mouth with a handkerchief, you realize that a portion of the handkerchief gets moist. That moisture goes into the air. Those particles, that's what we call the droplets. So it is you get infected when you come into contact with those droplets. And what we have been told is that those droplets travel or stay in the air at about 10 feet or so, which is about 2 meters. That is why we've been asked to keep social distance, etc. These diseases normally emanate from animals. So when you look at Ebola, for example, Ebola was also a viral disease. Ebola emanated from, bats, anthrax. Pigs, cows, etc. also have anthrax. In this case, we were told that they discovered it in a fish market in Wuhan, which meant that it was something which infected fishes. Diseases which are able to travel from animals to human beings are called zoonotic diseases. The phenomenon is called zoonosis. So when it is just animal to human infection, it's easier to control. You just have to ensure you don't come into contact with the animal. Or if you can, you kill the animals when you find them so it doesn't spread. It becomes dangerous when we have human-to-human infection, like we have in this case. So after it moved from fish to human, now we have human-to-human infections. That is where the problem has been. And because when people talk, there are certain people, when they talk, they splash saliva. Droplets of saliva come. When they sneeze, they cough, those things come. And because we talk at close range, etc., it's easier that people come into contact with these droplets. And the thing about it is that you won't know, because the symptoms what the WHO is telling us is that the symptoms start showing after maybe 4 to 14 days. What we call the incubation period. That is when the virus incubates, it's able to reproduce itself up to a certain number to be able to start manifesting symptoms or signs in a person to show that person has a problem. The coronavirus, when you look at the image of it, it's like a tennis ball with some spikes on it. The spikes on it are important because the spikes determine which part of the body they must attach. So various kinds of viruses or microbes attach to various parts of the body. And indeed, microbes are not entirely bad. Microbes, some are good, some are bad. There are microbes all over our esophagus, for example. Even in our mouth, there are microbes there, but they serve a certain purpose. So when they don't serve a purpose that inures to the good health of the person, then we say they cause disease. So this one, the spikes on it make them attached to parts of the lungs. So we are told not to touch our faces because you can't have it when it's stuck on your skin, because that is not the destination of it. So if it's on your skin for a long time and it doesn't go anywhere else, it may die off, or it may die off. But once it gets the opportunity to get into any of your orifices, your nose, your eyes, your mouth, it's able to travel down through your throat into the lungs where it wants to go. So it stays in your mouth for a while, it travels into your throat, then you begin to feel symptoms of sore throat, etc. It travels further to the lungs. Mind you, that is where it wants to be. Yeah. When it gets there, it attaches itself to the cells of the lungs, and is able to alter the genetic makeup of the cells. It reproduces itself, replicates many, and affects other nearby cells. And now these cells become compromised. So the lungs, that is where the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide occur. And it is the place where oxygen gets into the blood. And you see, the blood needs oxygen, the body needs oxygen to perform. That oxygen is carried by the blood. So if the exchange or the mechanism which ensures the exchange in the lungs is faulty, then it means that a bigger part of your body will not be able to get the needed amount of oxygen. So your muscles begin to feel fatigue. Okay. That is why we say that you begin to feel body pains, you begin to sneeze, you begin to cough, etc., because your lungs then would have been compromised. So in the worst form of it, you develop what we call pneumonia, and that is when it becomes very, very dangerous and it becomes very deadly. So in essence, that is how it is. So you see that, given how I've traced it, you see various symptoms manifesting at various times. So you sneeze, you cough, you feel bodily pains, etc. And once this happens, once the virus has been able to replicate itself many times in your system, when you sneeze, you throw some of them out. And if somebody is not fortunate and picks it, so once it settles, it settles on surfaces. When you touch a surface, it sticks to your hand. You don't know innocently. You go somewhere, you go and shake somebody, the person picks it, touches his face, and then it goes like that. And because of how it spreads, it makes it very, very dangerous. That is why I'm happy we took the first initial steps. President addressed the nation on Sunday night announcing the measures. They've been difficult, but they've been useful. And we hope that we're able to contain it and do better. Okay,
so let me read a quick one and come to you, Samens, on the cases where we've gotten to with it. So around, I think, 4 or 5, the latest cases were reported. So the number got up to 11. If you go to the Ghana Health Services website, it dedicated to updating Ghanaians on the COVID-19 cases, confirming the cases. Said the first case, which is today's, the recent two, involves a 59-year-old woman resident in the UK who recently returned to Ghana and currently living in Kumasi. The second case involves a 61-year-old Lebanese male teacher trader resident in Kumasi. According to the website, he fell unwell and reported to a health facility with fever, temperature 39.4 Celsius, and a cough. The sample tested positive for COVID-19. Now, the confirmation of these two cases comes hours after the president has said the cases were 9. In Ghana, people say we've not even gotten to the point where it's, gotten to the pandemic proper, like we've seen in the China's and the Italy and all that. But would it get worse before it starts getting better with the numbers we're seeing over the period? From 2 last week, 11 exactly a week after.
Thanks, Vivian. I think people saying that it will get worse before it gets better is just by their own observations and just following after the curve as it's happened in other places. And so it's just mathematical to conclude that you follow that curve, it goes up and then it comes down. Now, why it's more likely to be like that is the number of people in the ring of contacts who have been physically exposed to these persons. So I think that's why the Ghana Health Service and the government have been, knee-deep, hands-on, to make sure that people are informed of what to do when you feel that you've been exposed. Yeah. And I think so far, so good. I wouldn't be surprised if the number increases Not because I know anything differently, but because of the number of people, as reported by the Ghana Health Service, who have been exposed to these persons, at varying degrees. And we definitely will have some people who will not be captured. So we just have to brace ourselves up. And look, you may have come into contact with these persons and not, have the disease. So anything at all is possible. But if we're using probabilities, then it's more likely that the number can increase.
Right. So the numbers are now 11. The president, in his first address, or the second, I think, gave up a number of directives we should start going by. For example, we're seeing bans and funerals for at least a month, schools suspended for about a month. Those large gatherings that we're not seeing bans, they're supposed to take certain precautionary measures and all that. But what is your thoughts about all these preventive measures we've put in place and the things the president and the health authorities have, put out that we should do? Are some of them, are they all realistic things we can really go by, considering our nature, as Ghanaians?
Okay, so I think that these are carefully thought through items that you've listed. But everything put together, we are fighting against social norms and the way we do things, the way we are used to doing things. But that notwithstanding, leadership has called and we have to follow because in the longer term, social distancing is one of the surest ways of not necessarily eradicating the disease, but reducing the spread. And so that for sure has to happen. And in my thinking, if after 1 month it's not looking good, they may come up with more drastic measures. Like
a lockdown, total one?
Of course.
Is that possible?
No, it's possible, maybe not easily plausible, but it's possible. In communities, it's possible. Yeah. It's possible because if that is where we find ourselves and we know that by effectively using the social distancing approach is going to reduce the numbers, why not? And I'm not saying that we will get there definitely, but you don't have any options left, choice, yeah. But I think that the directives so far have been very healthy, and by and large, people are coming along nicely. The difficulty is where we have to change the structure of society, physically change the way things are structured, like our marketplaces, like our public transport system. Things like that. That may take a while for people to understand. But where we are, I think education is the way to go. People constantly have to be educated on what to do and how to do it. Because, you see, we sit in Accra, Kumasi, Tamale, and we think that the rate at which we assimilate policy information is the same as people in remote villages. It's never the same. So I think that education is the main thing that we need to really push. I mean, so far, the ministry and the government have done a great job. The Ghana Health Service, they've been up on the job. But media will have to help. That's why we have dedicated a lot of our programs to talking about this coronavirus.
Yeah.
And I am thinking that we should even now come to the core. Corporate Ghana, and I always come to corporate Ghana, they should not sit and be caught ball watching. You see, we are talking about sanitizers. We are talking about hand washing. Trust me, lots of the lower end income earners cannot afford it. And I'll come back to my proverbial traffic light. The moment you get to the red light, there are young boys who come and slap their palms on your car all over.
Yeah.
At times, they wipe their palm on your screen. You know what they are doing? It could be anything. But I'm saying that corporate Ghana should rise to the occasion. companies should go to KNUST or University of Ghana, the biochemistry department, the pharmaceutical department, pharmacy department, or college of pharmacy, and buy the sanitizers and go and donate to the poor people. Because you see, you may be sitting in your cantonment or your Laboni or wherever. You are sending your house help to Agboglosi.
That's right.
To go and buy food for you. You don't know who they are engaging.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that the call is for corporate Ghana to help. How do you help? Go and buy sanitizers. Go and buy soap. Look, there are people who don't even have the soap.
Yeah, some people don't even bath because
They
there's
don't
no
have
water, no soap, nothing.
So this is how we can help corporate Ghana. Government is doing their bit. Now the religious bodies are doing their bit. You know, traditional authorities are doing their bit. Local assemblies, municipal authorities, they are all doing their bit. But I haven't seen the action of corporate Ghana. And that's why I think that if you don't know what to do, you can just buy sanitizers, go to Agboglosi, go to all these places, go to the villages, and give to them.
Okay. So we'll take a quick break. When we come, we'll pick your thoughts on the measures that are in place. But you're watching what the papers are saying. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back to what the papers are saying. My name is Vivian Kai Lokko. I'm here with Selorm Adonoo and Atta Mensah. We're talking about the COVID-19 and measures put in place by government to prevent further spread of the disease. Currently, we have 11 in Ghana as of this afternoon, Thursday. Selorm, the precautions and measures were put in place. Some men have raised a number of issues we should look at, and how corporate Ghana must also get involved in all of this. What are your thoughts about the whole measures we've started rolling out, and are they working at all?
Yes, I think the measures were important. I think the president rose to the call, very emphatic and very important directives he gave. And I think by and large, since then, a lot of people, or generally everybody, has been complying. And I think that his team or his men are putting up a good show. In public health emergencies like this, or public health efforts generally, are multi-sectorial. So when you look at the press conference addressed by the Minister of Information's press conference yesterday, a number of ministries took turn to address the public because, the way we live, you cannot just situate it under one ministry. It's spread across. So you realize you saw Hajia Alima Mahama from the local government ministry telling us things that the local government bodies or the MMDAs are doing. Establishing the public health emergency committee, which is important, and I hope once they've been established, they will work. You heard the transport minister, because transportation is a key part of it. Finance minister, I'm sure, was part of it, but couldn't come because the funds are important. Information ministry itself, because information is important. Health ministry, so because now this thing sits on its lap. Interior ministry, you saw the immigration who form part of the Interior Ministry. So everybody appears to have a role to play. And that's how we deal with public health issues. And I think it's working well. I was happy today when the president took it a step further by meeting the religious bodies. A lot of them appreciate the efforts, but may not necessarily be happy because church services are being called off. But it's a necessity. Engaging with them, calling on them to pray for the nation, because like it or not, Ghana is a secular state, but like it or not, we are a religious people, and we believe in prayer. That's our faith. We believe that prayer works. Called the key religious leaders of the country, spoke to them. They took turns to pray for various facets of society, and I think it's great. And my information is that tomorrow the presidency will be meeting the Muslim community as well, which is great. The Muslim communities responded well. The chief imam issued a directive or circular endorsing the president's action. And until recently, I didn't know that. Of course, I'd always known the Friday prayers were very important, but I didn't know they attach such huge importance to it, because I understand the blessings are a notch higher on Fridays. So they had to stand down that one as well, etc. I think it's great. what Italy didn't do right, I hope we are doing right. Italy, from all readings, did not take it seriously. They thought it was a joke. When the figures were increasing, they were going about their normal activities as if nothing was happening, until it was getting worse. People began to die, etc. Just the whole of today, maybe from last night to today at this time, about 427 people have died. Over 5,000 new cases have been reported, and that is huge. And now their death toll is even gone higher than that of China. China has about 1.4 billion people, or about 1.4 billion people. Their death toll is now lower than what Italy, which are just 60 million people, has. That should tell you how devastating the situation is currently in Italy. So the president, I was happy he said that the measures were the initial ones, and as time goes on, the measures will be reviewed depending on the circumstances. I will appeal to him also that he should review some of the measures, especially the fact that GHS 3 students or BEC candidates must stay in school. It's important. Exam is great, and SSC or WASI people as well. It's great. But given that they go home and come back, we don't know which people they have contact with. I think the same way universities have been closed, BEC and WASI people should also come home. It's important because you need to be strong and alive to write the exam and pass and be happy. And look at how they are in classrooms. Given the average classroom, I'm not sure the social distancing protocols could be properly implemented. I mean, if they can give them also a 1 month or 4 weeks break so we see how we're able to contain this, I think it would be great. After all, WASI is a West African thing. The 4 English-speaking countries of West Africa also, they come together to form it, and they all know what the situation is. So if they are to defer or postpone the exam for a month or two, I'm not sure the world will come to an end. BEC, fortunately, is a Ghana thing. We can postpone it for 2 months or a month or so to ensure that the situation is contained. We may be doing everything, but leaving a small hole somewhere, which would be the BEC and WASI people. And I don't think that our efforts should be compromised by just these two groups of people.
So you want that to be put on hold?
I want that to be added to.
Others want the night clubbing and the pubs and all those ones also put on hold. If we look at the numbers they will attract, they feel it's just about the same sort of with the churches and the mosques. So why don't we just put on hold all those gatherings?
Yes, I've heard that, and yes, I agree to that to some extent. But I think the president was also looking at the economic side of things, because you can't just shut everything down at once like that. People must be able to go to places and do things. But the measures will be reviewed depending on what the figures are, depending on what information is available to Mr. President. He will review the measures. And I will not be surprised if the measures, the situation gets worse and the measures are being reviewed. I will not be surprised if the same ban is placed on nightclubs and restaurants, etc. Mind you, they were asked to provide certain things, ensure that there were hand sanitizers available, try to implement the social distancing protocols, etc. So it's not as if they've been left off the hook to do as they please. But what is important is that they are implementing the measures. Maybe a lot of them are not, but let's try and ensure that implementation or enforcement of these measures takes place.
Okay, so let's stick with the issue about the public gatherings and the ban on it. And the Attorney General laid a new bill in Parliament to enforce that ban on public gatherings. If you permit me, I'll just read 1 or 2 stories around this. First, on the fact that the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Gloria Akufo, has laid the new imposition of restrictions bill in Parliament in line with President Nana Akufo-Addo's order. This bill recognizes the general fundamental freedoms guaranteed under Article 21 of the Constitution, but also takes cognizance of the fact that the exercise of the right to general fundamental freedoms guaranteed under the Constitution is subject to laws that are reasonably required, among others. Its purpose is to provide powers to impose restrictions on persons in the event of a disaster, emergency, or similar circumstance to ensure public safety and protection. This afternoon, the minority rejected the request to consider the restrictions bill under the certificate of urgency. Of course, the committee in charge of that voted, the majority agreed that it should go, but the minority in Parliament has rejected the government's request for the imposition of restrictions bill to be passed under a certificate of urgency. According to the chairman of the Subsidiary Legislation Committee of the House, Dr. Dominic Ayine, the bill is too broad and does not concern itself specifically with dealing with the spread of the novel coronavirus. Speaking to Citi News, the Bolga East MP said the minority side want a bill that is narrowly tailored to deal with the coronavirus. This, quote, this is a bill that is intended to give the president overboard powers to restrict freedom of movement, freedom of speech, and even freedom of thought. Selorm, are they justified in calling for a rejection of the bill at this time in terms of consideration, looking at what they were hoping to see in the bill and what the general capturing of this bill on the restrictions?
I think it's a lot of mistrust. I think their comment portrays a mistrust in the system. I get a thinking of the executive in taking this bill to Parliament, that we have a one-stop shop bill or legislation which deals with every kind of situation which comes up, I mean, in terms of emergency. So be it a health matter or be it a natural disaster, etc., you will have a legislation to back what you want to do. So take China, for example. People have said that the way China dealt with the coronavirus disease could not have been done by other more liberal, countries or democracies, because, people will talk about rights, people will talk about freedom to do that, freedom of that, freedom of that. In China, when they decided to do, they just went ahead and did it. There was, I didn't really hear or read any dissent, because it's kind of an autocratic system, and what the big man says is what everybody does. So that, in some way, has paid off. In our case, it is not entirely like that, because there are certain freedoms. So before you take those freedoms away, you should be able to draw your power from somewhere. And so I think what the executive is trying to do is to ensure that legislation is available. But I talk about mistrust because we live in a political environment where you are not sure what your opponent wants to do with what. And a lot of these things don't happen in a vacuum. You look at our constitutional and political jurisprudence. We've had leaders who have been power drunk and have used the law to do things which are not proper. Yeah. Nkrumah at some point did that, and a few other people, I think, did the same. So I read the memorandum. I read the report of the committee. They made a point that it's a futuristic document. It is not a document specifically tailored to the needs of today. That was how come you did not see coronavirus in it, and that makes a lot of sense. But I think the other concern too is that there are certain parts of it which talk about propagating certain doctrines which people may think are against the national symbols, etc. And if I could just read that portion of the bill, I think clause 3D says that the restriction is reasonably required for the purposes of safeguarding the people of Ghana against the teaching or propagation of a doctrine which exhibits or encourages disrespect for the nationhood of Ghana and the national symbols and emblems, or incites hatred against members of the community. Ordinarily, this should sound good and this should be good. But at what point will somebody, maybe a president who is power drunk, determine that what person A or B is saying or propagating is injurious to the nation Ghana, or the person is preaching hatred? Reasonably, we should be able to tell. But given how politicians can be, maybe now or in the future, I think the concerns in that arena should also be looked at. Okay. But generally, the spirit of it, I think, is good. You need a legislation from which any president can draw in times like this.
Okay, so Mensah, your thoughts on that?
No, I think Selorm has made a point. Our democracy permits all sorts of expressions of opinions, and the minority are suspicious and they don't think that they should support it. I think that's okay. That's why there's minority and majority. And so at the end of the day, the buck stops with the president, and it's what he wants done. And he uses Parliament to do it, so be it. Because we have seen people when they are in opposition, what they can support. When they get into government, they tend the pull, all sorts of things. So as people who are also educated, we read and we make our own understanding. And I think that it's just show of leadership. Whether it's popular or not popular, it's leadership, and it's leading to a certain end. And I think it's fair at this point. If this we could even scale it up if the situation worsens.
Okay. We're told that Parliament has voted to approve the imposition of restriction bill under a certificate of urgency. This is just coming in from our parliamentary correspondent. Let's move to the EC and the NIA, because the Shraj has raised concerns over the insistence of both the NIA and the Electoral Commission to respectively go ahead with the Ghana card registration in the Eastern region and the compilation of a new voter register amid the coronavirus scare in the country. Now, Shraj, in a statement, indicated that the two state institutions' disregard of the President's directive is in breach of the international and regional human rights instruments and the sustainable development goals for which Ghana is a party to. And then it says it's going against the existing precautionary measures aimed at containing and combating COVID-19. So, must they halt this whole registration thing, both the EC and the NIA?
They should review their plans. I mean, halt not in an abrasive manner, but everything is a schedule that they have. So there's abundant reasoning behind the call for them to do a rescheduling of their plans. And I mean, I don't know why any institution will be in a hurry at this point where we find ourselves. When you have a president who's in his 70s, who wakes up at dawn to meet pastors because of the concern and the heart he has for the leadership of Ghana, some people decide that we want to do our own thing, regardless of the clear and present danger that we face as a nation. And that's where, people have a problem. Look, at West, even if you want to do it, just keep quiet and do your thing. But making statements that will upset people, I think it's uncalled for. So I agree with the Shraj, the call that Shraj is making to make sure that these people put whatever they are doing on hold. Let's figure out the direction where this thing is going to take us. Because, see, you are not pushing for elections when you have nobody to vote. You understand? COVID-19 is life and death issue. Election is not life and death. So just pack it somewhere. Let's deal with COVID-19.
Okay. You're watching what the papers are saying. We'll be right back. We'll pick their concluding thoughts on these issues. Don't go away. So welcome back to what the papers are saying. My name is Vivian Kai Lokko. I'm here with Selorm Adonoo and Atta Mensah. So Selorm, let's pick your thoughts about the NIA and the EC and the registration that they still are. NIA is still going on with it. EC intends to also go on with it.
Yes, I mean, I find the NIA's insistence to go ahead with the registration very unfortunate. I think it's flies in the face of the president's directive. The NIA boss is an appointee of the president, and if your boss gives an order, you don't go ahead and do what you want. And what they are doing may further endanger the lives of people. The registration officers are calling us. They are crying that they don't want the situation the way it is. They want the thing put on hold and or if possible postponed until we're able to see our way in all these maze of coronavirus disease. I think it's a good call by the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice. The GMA also made a similar call, and a lot of well-meaning Ghanaians have been making the same call. I'll be surprised if by close of tomorrow the NIA doesn't come out to tell us that they have put the thing on hold. And indeed, when after the president made the comment or gave the directives, they said they were going to supply the people, some equipment or some consumables to use in the process.
Yeah.
And the consumables haven't come, or it took a long time. And what they brought could not even go around. And this is a place where, I don't know if you've seen people in a queue wanting to register for this NIA card or voter ID cards and things like that. A lot of people mass up, because if you don't come early, you can't do it for the day, because the machines are limited in the number of cards they can produce a day. So some people come at dawn. So for the NIA to say that they have told their registration officers to implement certain protocols, social distancing protocols, etc., it makes me feel like they don't know the bigness of the situation we are talking about, or they don't even know what happens on the ground. When you see this huge number of people, how are you going to do the social distancing? They mass up. Sometimes they're in a hurry because somebody may be trying to jump the queue. They mass up against the person. You don't need that. If you are asking us to observe social distance and you are, asking us to stay at home and not move around, you don't allow these things to happen. So I think Kenatefo and his people must do whatever is possible to ensure that by close of day tomorrow, they call this off and let the registration officers go home. They are our friends, they are our brothers, they are our sisters. We don't want anything to happen to them. Because what's the point in having a card when you fall sick later on and you die? Would the card resurrect you? I don't get it. So they must really put their... I am very disappointed in the good old professor.
They're upset.
And I think they must put their house in order and call this thing off or halt it in the meantime, for us to figure our way out of this. Because now nobody really knows where this thing is going. And we are all praying and hoping that things don't get out of hand. And there's a present danger. And you are inviting people to it. And you see, I read a comment somewhere that there's a demand for it. The people are coming to it. Or when the people are coming. The people will come because this thing we are talking about, not everybody even believes it. Yeah. People think it's a joke. People think nothing will happen. People think because they are so and so, this will not happen to them. A certain pastor was arrested in Kumasi yesterday. Yeah. People came to church. They also came to church.
Yeah.
Did we say because, there was a demand for church service, so we don't have to do anything? The pastor was arrested. Okay. Why are we not ensuring that the same rules are enforced elsewhere? Kenatefo and his people should hold this exercise till we find our way clearly in this maze.
Okay. Gentlemen, thank you so very much for your time. Thank you so much. Atta Mensah is with Citi FM and Citi FM. And then
Citi TV.
Citi FM and Citi TV. And then Selorm Adonoo is head of features and article here at Citi FM and Citi TV. When we come back, we go to Vivian's View. Don't go away. So it started in Wuhan, China, the new coronavirus, COVID-19. And within a few months, the virus has spread globally to more than 100 countries. It is moving at a fast rate and has affected more than 230,000 people, with close to 10,000 deaths as of 7 p.m. on Thursday. Now, in China, over 81,000 people have been infected, with over 3,000 deaths recorded. Italy, over 35,000 cases, over 3,000 deaths. USA, over 11,000 cases, 171 deaths. UK, over 3,000 cases, over 100 dead as of Thursday, March 19. Now, this deadly virus is certainly no respecter of race, color, age, wealth, or social standing. And here in Ghana, we have not been excluded from its wrath. As of March 19, 2020, Ghana had recorded 11 cases. We also lost 3 of our own Ghanaians, 2 in Italy and 1 in Denmark, through this disease. Now, across the globe, many countries have taken drastic measures against this virus. And here in Ghana, the President, Nana Akufo-Addo, and health officials, among others, have also announced certain measures to help stop the spread of the virus in Ghana, including the closure of schools, travel advisory, suspension of public gatherings, including funerals, religious activities such as church services and mosques for 4 weeks, among others. But as this pandemic takes its course, inefficiencies, bad decisions, inactions, and poor judgment will be exposed. According to health officials, one of the efficient ways to protect oneself from the virus is a frequent washing of hands with soap and running water. Now, a few weeks ago, officials of the Ghana Water Company warned about the consequences of the actions of persons engaging in illegal mining on our water bodies and the supply of water to our homes. Now, in times like this, when the provision of essential services are most needed, we are faced with a shortage of water in most parts of the country, and this was created by our own inefficiencies. We cannot continue to be enemies of our own progress by taking one step forward and several others back. For many years, we have been an import-led economy, importing anything from poultry, salt, sugar, and even toothpick. And the majority of these imports are coming from China. For weeks, China has been forced to put on hold these exports because of the pandemic. Imagine if this goes on for some time, for some more months, the implications on us as an import-led economy. It is time we take a drastic decision as a country on transforming our economy into an export-led one. Unfortunately, this pandemic will also expose our lack of seriousness in dealing with sanitation and personal hygiene as a people and the enforcement of our local bylaws on sanitation. This time around, our usual attitude of flouting such laws must not be tolerated because it will have dire consequences if we do. Moments of adversity present an opportunity for us to take far-reaching decisions. Our MMDCEs must take steps to implement the President's directives. The way we buy and sell food has to change. Our markets have to be paved and fumigated. Shops must be properly numbered to enhance identification, location, and tracing. Our trotros must observe a more reasonable seat spacing regime. We can no longer do one man, one seat. Now, the GPRTU and lorry stations must show leadership to enforce these new rules to reduce the likelihood of spread via our chaotic public transport system. Nightclubs and eateries must also go beyond the availability of hand sanitizers to deliberately space out their areas of operation. These social distancing initiatives are necessary to ensure that the initial moves gain success. The President and health authorities have issued a number of directives to protect us from spreading the virus. Let us abide by these rules. We need you. Wash your hands, use sanitizers, practice social distancing, and keep safe. This has been Vivian's View. My name is Vivian Kai Lokko. Thank you for watching What the Papers Are Saying.